Hello everyone, Fuzzfinger here, and thank you for joining me as we get back to Final Fantasy XIII-2. And today we are going to be completing the main story. So we'll be undertaking the last few bosses of the game in the last area. And in order to get there, we're going to have to head back to Academia 500 AF. But before we do so, I think it's pertinent to get our paradigm packs in order and our paradigm sets ready for the final encounters, since as far as I'm aware, once you've started them, the only way to make changes is to start back from the beginning again of the first encounter. So let's get our paradigm pack set up, and we're going to want a sentinel for emergency use. I'm not going to bother with a synergist, since at this point in the game we should be quite overpowered anyway. We're definitely going to want our Ravager and a Commando, so we can set up our usual set of paradigms such as Relentless Assault, Delta Attack, etc. So obviously Relentless Assault is probably going to want to be your default paradigm, and Delta Attack for emergency use if you're struggling with the bosses, although at this point in the game you shouldn't really be. Then you're going to want Attrition with a Medic and a Saboteur, and that will again be for emergency use, so you're going to want a Sentinel there to soak up any damage. And you're definitely going to want a Cerberus or Kerberos paradigm, which is your 3 commandos for your main damage output once we have high chain bonuses. And finally, we're going to want the Tortoise paradigm for powerful abilities that the bosses use. So when all that's in order, you can head on over to Academia 500 AF, and if you've been following the walkthrough all the way through, you will be at the final point of the map, and it is just a case of heading forward north to trigger the starting cutscenes. So again, just mind the gap, you don't want to be falling down there. And head to the waypoint marker. And remember, once you reach that waypoint, the only going back is to start from the beginning at this point. So make sure you are ready for all the encounters to come. That's why I recommend setting up your paradigm pack at that point. Okay, and then we get some cutscenes.
Yule, are you watching? I shall fulfill my promise. Your suffering will end.
Good. You're okay.
Of course we are. Just took a little detour.
Get on board. He's the best pilot we have. Quickly!
We're on!
Hang on up there, you kids. You're on the Saz Express to the sky.
Take her up, Dad!
We can catch up later. First, we've got a planet to save.
This is it. A fight for the future.
Ready?
face. Want to see how well you've trained me? Now's your chance!
Okay, so Kairos has transformed into Bahamut. Chaos, in fact. And to start with, this fight isn't that difficult. In fact, none of the fights at the end are that difficult since we've leveled up our characters. I'm just going to open up in Relentless Assault and start hacking away. If you're not as levelled as my party is, then you may want to use Delta Attack against this boss. And I am just going to use a Libra Scope. I recommend you use a Libra Scope against all the bosses at the end here, just to sort out their weaknesses and that for your character's auto attacks and whatnot. It can actually just speed the battles up. And that was his mega attack that we just saw. So as I said, if you are a weaker party, just switch to either Tortoise or Delta Attack to absorb some of that damage and continue on building up his chain bonus. There we go, we can see Libra Scope's activated all his abilities for us to see. And you can switch to Cerberus when he's about 250% through his chain bonus, just to finish him off quickly. There we go, 5-star rating, easy peasy. And then we'll have some more cutscenes.
Truth, Sarah. You are the same as Yule. You can see the timeline. Even if you save your future, you will not survive to see it.
I know the truth, Kairos. I know that every time I change things, I lose a part of my life. But don't you see? I don't care. I'm here to protect the future. And I will!
How very noble of you. But you shall die first.
And now we have the first battle against Kairos in his normal form, in his human form. And he does like to use status debuffs on your party, including the one which stops you from using any attack or ability, so you might want to just throw a remedy on that to get rid of it. Otherwise, apart from that, he should drop very quickly. The only other thing he does, which is of importance to note, is that he likes to deplete his chain bonus back down to 0. He can do this when he's staggered, when he's not staggered. See, he just did it there. And if you have quite a weak party, then that can be a bit of a nuisance. But if you are quite levelled up, then it shouldn't really be a problem at all. This is the easiest of the 2 Kairos fights that we're going to have to do. So there we have it. He's pretty much about to be finished off. He still does quite a bit of damage though, so just in case you might want to be ready with some potions or your paradigm with a medic. But that's all there is to it for that Kairos fight. And then we get some more cutscenes. Okay, so Kairos acts very similar in this fight to the last fight, except he's much more aggressive. Now at the start of the encounter, you're gonna want to paradigm shift to Tortoise straight away, since he uses a plethora of damaging attacks to begin with, including Ultima, and you don't want to die at this point, since you would have to go back to the beginning encounter. So switch to that Tortoise paradigm immediately, and once he's cast his opening damaging onslaught, you can switch back to your Relentless Assault paradigm and start doing some damage and chain building. Now he does die very quickly once he's staggered. If you've got a weaker party, he still dies quickly, so the idea is to get him staggered as quickly as you can, and then you just want to switch to Cerberus to finish him off quickly. Okay, now he does resurrect straight away, so that's not the end of the encounter. He can still use his chain break ability, and if you are struggling at this point, just make sure you use Delta Attack as your main offensive paradigm rather than Relentless Assault, and switch to Attrition to get healing going and debuffs. Other than that, this fight, after he's resurrected, is pretty much the same as it was a moment ago. So again, you just want to build up his chain bonus and get him staggered, and then finish him off quickly. He still likes to cast Inferno, which hurts, so weaker parties may want to switch to Tortoise. Even if you've got a strong party and you want to take a little bit less damage, then that Tortoise paradigm may come in very useful. But ultimately, you are just going to want to take the risk, accept some damage and attacks, just so you can kill him as quickly as possible. And we still have one more fight to go, so don't put the controller down just yet. So for this encounter, which is the final encounter of the game, for the main story anyway, we have 3 bosses we have to fight simultaneously. They are Amber, Garnet and Jet. Jet being the leader, or the most powerful. He's the one in the centre. Now we want to start off by taking out the 2 sub-bosses, which are Amber and Garnet. So for the tactics taking out these bosses, we want to concentrate on one at a time, stagger it as quickly as we can, then finish it off, and then we rinse and repeat with the second sub-boss. Now Amber, which is the one we're going for at the minute, is resistant against magical attacks, and Garnet is resistant against physical attacks. But in reality, if you've got a high level party, you won't actually need to worry about that. But a lever scope at the start of this battle will also be helpful against that. So now we're on Garnet, and we're just going to stagger him quickly. And once we've killed him, that will bring Jet into the fight. And he does resurrect his side bosses, although we still have to kill them, unfortunately, since we can't actually target him at the moment. So we just finish this side boss off quickly as we can. Once we've killed this encounter, or finished this encounter, I'm going to have to edit out the ending, unfortunately, since it flags up as copyrighted content and the video won't be available. But I will try and find the video that hasn't been flagged and post a link to it in the description so you can still see the ending. Okay, now that Jet is in the fight, he will put some status debuffs on the party. So you might want to start off with just in your attrition paradigm, just to cover out that initial damage. But then it's once again just a case of getting him staggered. You want to get as much damage to him as you can. You'll get to fight him for a couple of minutes at a time before he starts resurrecting the other 2 bosses. And when he does that, you are going to have to take them out again. So there's the stagger, just going to build his chain bonus up a little bit higher. Use my Feral Link, because that's usually pretty good at building up the chain bonus. It got up about 200% in fact, which is very nice. So when this boss is by himself, he can cast Giga Flare, which does a fair amount of damage. However, he can also cast it when he has another boss, and the ability is actually a lot more powerful then. And when both sub-bosses are up, he can cast Exa Flare, which is super powerful and very damaging, so you want to avoid that. The Seeds of Destruction, which you just saw him cast, they summon little seeds which you have to take out as quickly as possible. So immediately switch to the Cerberus paradigm when he does that, and finish them off quickly before going back onto the main boss. Now, we've done quite a bit of damage to him. I was hoping to be able to finish him off before he started summoning his side bosses, but I didn't think that was it didn't look like that was possible in the end. Still, as you can see, you can debuff the boss, so that's why I'm using attrition as my main healing paradigm. That Saboteur roll just helps debuff him a little bit to make the rest of the encounter a bit faster. he's blocking now, which means he's bringing back one of his sub-bosses, and we have Amber to get rid of. Now we do want to take this out, because we don't want Jet casting his flare ability, since it will be more powerful with the sub-boss out. So let's take that out as fast as we can. There's the stagger. Switch to Cerberus. And now we can focus once again on the boss, the main boss. But in all honesty, none of these end bosses are particularly challenging if you've been levelling up your characters. There are much tougher bosses in the game in my opinion. Yomi, for instance, is harder, and there's a boss we haven't yet fought in Urba, which we can't do until after the main game. That is also very challenging, so there are harder bosses than this. So as you can see, it's important to kill the first sub-boss once he starts resurrecting them before the second comes out. Or it could be pretty much a wipe if he does his flare attack when they're both out. That's really the most damaging, or the most dangerous part of this encounter. So let's get the stagger on once again. And he's debuffed a little bit from attrition. And that's both sub-bosses down. So I'm pretty sure we can finish Jet off on this turn. I don't mean this ATB turn, I mean before he brings the bosses back out again. Okay, that's the countdown for his flare ability. So try and heal up before it reaches 1 and then switch to Tortoise. So I'm just going to take a round or two in Relentless Assault. Right, there's the number 1 on the countdown, so I'm going to switch to Tortoise. And there's the Giga Flare. It's not that potent at the minute because there's no other bosses out. But hopefully you can see the order in which he does his abilities. He brings his first boss out, resurrects it, then the second boss, then a few seconds later he casts that flare. So ideally you definitely want both sub-bosses dead before he does that. And I think we've pretty much completed this encounter now. Yes, that's the end. 5-star rating. And this is where the ending to the game would now take place. Like I say, I will put a link down in the description if I can find one for you to watch that. And after that, we will get our fragment for completing the game. So we have now completed the game, and that's our fragment, along with the paradox scope, which is an essential item for completing the rest of the paradox endings, which is what the next few videos are going to be, along with collecting the final few fragments. In order to get the paradox scope, we're going to have to go to Serendipity. Valhalla has just unlocked, which is the final destination to be unlocked, and basically if you play that, you will just play the start of the game with lightning that we did earlier at the very beginning. So that's there if you want to replay that. When you're ready though, go to Serendipity and head over to the Mystic. I was actually just over here because I was buying some lever scopes earlier on. And the only place you can purchase them is from the casino vendor at the Chocobo races. At a horrendous 3,000 casino points apiece, which is a complete rip-off, but unfortunately the only place you can get them, apart from the scarce few treasure chests that they can be found in throughout the game. Speak to the Mystic for your paradox scope fragment skill.
It is clear as day. You were the ones chosen by the goddess. The fragments you carry are proof of her faith in you.
And I collected the Chocobo music fragment skill as well. And that's just a silly fragment skill that allows you to change the music that plays while you're riding Chocobos. So it can be a bit of fun. So enable the paradox scope. And I might just change the Chocobo music while I'm here. And that is technically the end of the game. Well, the end of the main story game at least. So there's no more story to do now. We're just going to spend the last few videos tying up some loose ends, as I mentioned, collecting the last 8 fragments and enabling the final paradox endings. Thank you very much for joining me for this video. I've been Fuzzfinger, and I'll see you next time.